On this week's show, discussing supporting a panelized world with David Victor and Chris Boal from BLUvera. In this week's news, less communication, 2024's top events, the EU and AI, and more. All right, we're back. I got my boy Nathan C. Wood coming live from his home construction zone as usual. You know, are we off budget, off schedule? Where are we, buddy?
Home stretch, baby. We got drywall inspection tomorrow, and hopefully be watching our Longhorns play on January 1st in the basement. Fingers crossed.
Well, yeah. I mean, I had a virtual tour of that the other day through FaceTime, and I had to say I would have counted you out on a January 1st Longhorns there. But maybe you won't have to, watch the loss in a loss. Maybe you can at least watch the loss in a win, if that makes any sense.
Either way, there's one win. We're half glass full.
And you brought with me one picture screen, but two people. David, good morning. Welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Doing great.
Chris, how about you, man? How you doing?
Doing fantastic. Glad to be here.
I'm very impressed with these two. They showed up with a super microphone setup, the headphones, asking me about levels. If you're ever sitting down on a podcast and you want to make the host's heart sing, come prepared like that. Like y'all could write the book on how to be prepared.
We always come correct, Jeff.
See? They come correct for this. They come correct for Panelized. You're going to want to learn about BLUvera. We're going to dive into all of it, but you guys know that before we do, we got to pause for the cause.
Whenever you're talking about something as substantial as suicide awareness and as alarming as to statistics around construction being the second highest rates of suicide in industry, we'd be fooling ourselves if we thought that this was a one-player fix, meaning that it just takes one silver bullet or one easy button to solve this challenge. This is a multi-threaded challenge, if you will, and it's really something that is the responsibility of all of us to lean in, to raise awareness, to provide tools and resources, to up-level conversations we have around, in construction, we're pretty much, hey, what's my job require me to get it done at any cost? Well, we now see what the outcome of that is. So I think it's important that we partner together to really have a unified voice around why mental health awareness is important, why it matters, and how we can frankly do better as an industry. It takes each of us leaning in to really create that.
All right. You've heard it too many times, but we are back on YouTube. Check us out at youtube.com/@the ConTech Crew, where we're dropping new shorts, new episodes, maybe even some special features, and you might get recognized if I recognize you when you subscribe. At the ConTech Crew, we focus on technology that solves industry problems. So today, I want to talk to you about Join. Every construction project is a unique prototype, and it's actually shaped by thousands of decisions that impact the owner's business case, design, and the budget. Today, the communication driving these decisions is disjointed across all the stakeholders. Work happens in email, Excel, estimating, resulting in delays, waiting for decisions, waiting for access to information, and sometimes that information is outdated and incomplete. Managing the expectations of the team and keeping the project moving forward is a constant challenge, and a lot of times drives skepticism amongst the contributors. Join empowers general contractors to build with confidence and maximize the potential of every project by connecting these owners through new workflows that fit into your existing processes. We bring design teams and trade partners into a single platform. There's transparency and collaboration in the decision-making, which builds trusts and sets projects up for success. You might be asking yourself, do you need another tool? Well, let me tell you, Join fits in seamlessly with your processes and your other tools. In fact, we're here to help those other tools. Regardless of your estimating system or your project management process, Join will be a valuable added resource without disrupting those other systems and your teams. So listen, put your spreadsheets on ice and leave your email behind for the decision-making platform for the built environment. Learn more at join.build. All right. So we got two folks with us today because I think this type of topic requires a couple of folks to talk us through what it is. So first we have David Victor, Senior Manufacturing Engineer. So David, tell us a little bit about how did you even get there and kind of what it is you do here.
Yeah, for sure. So my background is actually in automation and pneumatics. I had worked in that industry for a time and was looking for a change, and found this opportunity with BLUvera to get more into the manufacturing world. And I worked at a hardware store in high school. I always had kind of that construction remodeling bug, so it was an interesting opportunity, and so I ended up joining here in 2020 with BLUvera. Really, my role here as a manufacturing engineer, it's really everything from the model to our door is pretty much where I live. So if you think about what happens in terms of roll forming, production, safety, quality, all those things, that's what I'm focused on. So inside the factory, that's where my expertise is. It's been an interesting industry to be in, a complete diversion from what I was used to before. That's for sure.
That's awesome. And that goes to the new changes in construction and which is a nice segue into Chris. So Chris Boal, Integrated Construction Director. I love anything that's integrating construction at all. So it's all about bringing things together. So give us a little bit of your history. We were rapping beforehand. You've got some history in the biz, and then we can kind of get into BLUvera and what it is.
Trained as an architect, sort of technology nerd by trade, fabricator along the way. But I've always been associated with the AEC biz. But on the prefab and the industrialized construction side of it, it really was a job 12 years ago in Denver. I was had a big team of VDC coordinators, and we were doing a lot of prefab stuff on this job. And being a part of that and being a part of that mentality really kind of gave me the bug, the offsite world and how we put these things together with pieces and parts, which was, at that time we were getting a lot of press for, the most on any one building or whatever. And it was kind of exciting to be around a bunch of folks that were in that mentality. So again, pretty cool to have come back to it now here, 12 years later and right at the point of work. So it's pretty exciting.
It's pretty cool because that was in Denver. And Denver,
Yeah.
There's quite a few stories when I think back through the ConTech crew days of stories we covered that are early modular prefabrication, DFMA style projects that got their start here. I've had a couple of the folks from Encore Electric, Sam and those guys on, and they did some jobs early on. So yeah, we just it's cool because that Denver's right close to my heart there, and Nathan's sitting in a suburb, so to speak, of it, right?
Well, and even then, again, I was doing similar things in the Bay Area at the same time, again, 2012. And so, again, great to have both Chris and David's perspective because there's sort of the how we were doing it 12 years ago versus, what's different, what's the same in our both challenges and opportunities with DFMA today. So, yeah, really excited to get into this discussion.
Yeah, which brings us to what is BLUvera? What is it? How do you describe it? And sort of what are its origins and why does it exist today?
I can take a shot at that here. So we're the manufacturing arm of a major GC here in the U.S. We have operating groups all over the United States. What our approach from a cold form steel standpoint is cold form structure and balloon frame or exterior panel jobs. That's our major focus. It just in terms of what type of projects we would go after. And what drives that is being safer, faster, and more predictable in what we do. So, if we can leverage the DFMA process, that allows us to be safer, faster, more predictable inherently, on top of everything we can do in a factory to control the conditions and all of that stuff. And then on top of just being able to leverage technology to make things easier to build for people who aren't necessarily highly trained field carpenters, right? So making construction more equitable and making construction, lowering the barrier to entry for new folks to join the industry, because that's a lot of what we're trying to solve is how do we fill a labor shortage. By bringing construction into a manufacturing environment, we can allow for more predictable details, more predictable execution of daily work, which I think can go a long way to solve that labor shortage issue.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think putting them into a factory like that, where they can be overseen, that was some of the early things we learned from early prefab, right, and from groups having electricians have had this problem for a long time. So if you have a journeyman electrician, you can have a bunch of apprentices that are doing work. They've got somebody to look over their shoulder to do the quality assurance to make sure they're not over their heads, all that kind of stuff. So. But I'm going to take a step back because I want to jump over to Chris really quick, because that's the manufacturing, and David, you did a really good job of explaining what it is. But I know, as talking to owners and being on the other side, that I hardly understood what you said there. And I've been through a couple of these. So Chris, I want your, when an idiot like me sitting across, and nobody's going to be surprised that I'm the idiot in the room, what the heck are we doing? What is cold form structure? What's the end product here that I'm going to care about this as an owner and as somebody who's going to consume this thing?
Sure. I mean, so on a simple level, it's creating offsite sort of building blocks, and we're going to assemble them on site. The traditional, stick built or vertical world has been, located on site, and that has its challenges and weather and all sorts of other things around that. So we take that offsite, protected environments, safe environments, and then we put these pieces and parts together that we can assemble on site. So to that point, it takes a lot more engaged sort of design and coordination process. But when you get that right, they just click. They fit together kind of wonderfully when you get those processes right on site. But again, a lot of advantages to an owner in terms of the faster, the less carrying costs on your loans, insurance. Rates are different in terms of the types of materials that we use. There's just a lot of advantages, top to bottom. And really, not to say it to reinforce what David had said, we've been in the middle of a labor shortage for a long time. There are for us to get back to sort of an assembly type of work structure is one of the biggest ways that we're looking towards the future of how we stay in this industry and provide a better product, or continue to provide a good product for ourselves and our customers.
I've again had some experience with light gauge steel framing before, but typically it was in like a large concrete structure or something. And I think what you guys are talking about is the whole structure itself is completely made out of light gauge steel. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yep.
Very cool.
You got it.
And yeah, so help me understand, because that seems like if I'm an engineer and I designed a building that was, meant to be concrete or whatever, that's a lot of re-rate for me. Or how are you kind of working upstream with engineers and selling this newer style, or is it new in the market?
The engineers that we work with, I would say industry leading experts in cold form steel. So they understand it. I think where it can be a harder sell is with the architects and project owners and stuff like that, to understand what are the benefits and why. There's a lot of insurance benefits. There's a lot of fire code benefits. It's not to say that, it's just different than wood, right? There's other challenges. Things are different, but I think that's where we win out is in some of those realms.
It's interesting, Nathan, just to add to that, we're prepping to speak to a developer right now with our engineer, and he has suggested that we're going to get rid of that concrete podium also and do the entire thing top to bottom. Again, this is just trying to take more trades out of it and be more productive in that way. So it's kind of interesting the advantages we're able to offer developers and owners in that way.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because just the schedule driver alone and the labor cost of being able to pour a concrete podium. And to have an alternative.
So interestingly enough, too, I mean, panelized wall systems, that this is simpler, right, on an insurance side, and it's done in a factory, but it does require more coordination, if I'm not mistaken, right? This requires a lot of involvement, and early involvement. People hear that and they think, oh, you're just making it more difficult. And that could be another, I don't want that. And it's like, well, no. We have risk everywhere. Right. And all we do with stick build is shift risk off to the site to when it happens, because, it eventually happens. So we're bringing risk up front and exposing it. So I'm wondering how you guys go about, managing that. And like you said, David, it's, from the model. So I'm understanding that this is, pretty BIM based workflow here that we require that kind of stuff. So how is that impacting the process, and sort of what does that look like for the overall design and utilizing BLUvera?
Like you said, there's risk all over these jobs, and really the curve of resources that it takes to get these things done just shifts north to the front end of the job, right? And that's really the uncomfortable part, where traditional projects, I'm making this up, but they'll say I can pick this finish or make those decisions much later on. They're being forced to do them to a great level of detail and early. So that's the uncomfortable part. Not that, we can do it and do it well, but if the entire team isn't on board with that, that's the sort of pain points that we deal with.
Okay. So yeah. And by the way, guys, sorry, you guys can't see. Well, actually, those of you on YouTube can see this, but I have them backwards. So sometimes I'm asking the wrong question, the wrong person. So I'll just let whichever expert wants to answer, which is kind of fun. Chris, that's got to be really hard. But once you train that muscle, it's got to be really satisfying to see those decisions happen at the right time. And man, we're always kicking the can down the road with it. So what are some of did you have tricks? Did you have techniques? Did you just have a couple? I mean, in all honesty, every once in a while, I just get a really good owner that's like, listen, tell me what I got to do to get my stuff on time and I'll do what it is. They're rare, but they happen. So what are some of those things you've had to do in that process? And then I'd be interested that once you're done with it, as he's talking, David, I want you to think about where you pick this thing up and like effectively turn it into a machine. Cause that's what we're doing here, right? We're turning decisions on construction into a manufacturing machine, with the biggest hurdle being getting a decision made. Chris,
yeah.
It's
tough. I mean, it's tough on any job, traditional or not, to get our owners involved. So it really, in my experience, it's come down to talking through our owners and our customers and our subs around the process that we want to develop. I mean, we've turned ourselves into process managers in many ways. So you develop some trust, you understand what we're going to do, you let everybody know about that, and then we try to execute in those ways. I mean, it's not easy. I think the owner part of that is the interesting part. We on the sort of construction team part, that's what we do. We execute, and we've done that forever. We always need those owners to come back in and make those decisions with us. And I think when they say, well, I set it up, I funded this thing, I'm over here, I'm cool, don't bother me until it's done. I'm making that up a little bit, but when we need them to be engaged, that's part of the decision making process. Is to tee them up as well, to be a part of that team, so we can be in that flow and get those decisions made in a much more timely fashion.
The benefit there too, right, for the project teams or the owners, and it's time to completion, so time to market, heads and beds, right, all of that. By doing the coordination early, you'd have to do it anyway. We're just kind of changing the traditional flow of what coordination is, but that's therein lies the benefit, right? By allowing us to fabricate while they're doing other scopes of work that we need to follow, we're able to shrink that time to enclosure. So we'd have the building enclosed much sooner, and that's where it pays off, right there.
So I heard this analogy recently at LCI, and it's very simple, and it hit home beautifully. Time is money. Money is expensive. So you know what that means? Time is expensive. And
Exactly.
it comes straight down to
Spot on.
connecting those two together and saying, look, the time to enclosing it. And we say this because I come from the software side of things, right? Like time to value. From the minute you get my product, I am losing your faith until you see value in what I've provided for you, right? So that's your time to value. Same thing here. Construction and especially owners will judge you on time to value. When do I have heads in beds? When do I have those things? So it's interesting to see that you've shifted that up into the earliest phases and really put that on them as a collaborative team, though, because I thought that was interesting, Chris, when you talked about we're selling a process, right? This is a process change, and that comes with its own headaches and difficulties. But, with some laps and some repetition, we're good at process change. We have been over time, right? Because our owners, we give them a lot of crap, and I love to give them crap because, well, somebody has to be given crap. So,
Yeah.
if I had an owner on here, I'd probably be given a trade or a GC, some sort of crap for them, so I'm equal opportunity there. But ultimately, they've changed their process over time. Their funding processes have changed. Their funding mechanisms have changed. And then the types of facilities that they need to operate in have changed.
Yeah.
Right. So they've adjusted and changed their processes. So we're just bringing them along with us. I'm interested in, for our listeners. So now we've really talked about what the panelized wall systems, and that these are, I'm going to say, for lack of a better term, it's kind of like a new Lego. It's a new Lego way to do things. Do it in the factory, make it so that, an idiot like me, by the way, I can build Legos. If you give me wood, even IKEA, you're going to have a fire because I'm going to burn it at the end because I can't do it. But Legos I can do, and I can make beautiful ones. So I can already see how someone can come into this environment and get a lot of repetition and experience. But my listeners, our listeners here, love technology. So what are some of the technology tools that are enabling you all to do this? What are the things that, you're just, you said it, Chris, before, you're at your heart a nerd. So what are you nerding out on? What are you using? Are you developing your own things? What's going on?
Yeah, good question. We are, a data-based sort of group, right? That's where everything's at right now. And just like the rest of the world, we're not developing the designs. We are going to take someone else's design and create those Lego pieces, like you say, Jeff. Yeah, we have softwares that are going to take those things, panelize them, create the sort of level of detail models from a very high, rough sort of DD level thing that customers want early, down to the fab level stuff that I'm going to give David and his team to roll form and get us out to the field. So yeah, it's what they've developed are things that allow us to get from. Again, you can create studs in Revit and things like that, but it's not that tool is not built for it. It's a real fab level sort of understanding to create bill of materials, automate the sheet creation, automate the detail creation, and to be able to kick those things out in a systematic, standardized way that all of David's guys and the machine can take in and digest and deliver, the directions that we gave it. So, yeah, it's sort of this funny middleware. We got to talk to design, and we got to spit things to the most finite level out to those machines. And that's really what these softwares are doing.
Ooh. Now, are they custom? David, you're leaning in.
Yeah.
Are they custom?
We use a manufacturing machine to roll our own cold form studs. There's a lot of manufacturers of those out there. We use FrameCAD is the brand we have in house here. And there's other systems like that. The gist of it is we're taking a design out of Revit and then more or less printing it on this machine. So it's, they're going to be cut to length and labeled and all of the things that you would want in terms of allowing easy assembly. These machines will do that for us. So really from Chris's hands into mine, I add it to a machine, and it's my responsibility to make sure it meets all the right requirements in terms of size and gauge and all of that. And the machine does the rest.
So next level piece of that, we just celebrated our 5th year anniversary of BLUvera being in business. We just partnered up with another engineering partner that has developed customized software to kind of knit some of these things together. Again, as you guys all know, there's an interoperability issue in the broader construction tech world. We're finding that too. So the machines that we're using, they like keeping their coding right back where they are, and to do the round trip from design to machine and back, that's not been possible. So now we are partnering up with some other folks that have built these things. Again, that's their way around the round trip of this data that we need, and being around partners that understand that and that are smart enough to build these things. That's sort of our the next move that we just made.
I mean, well, this has just been what's been mind blowing to me, what was just explained here, because again, on the crew, we've had all these discussions with laser scanning and like GIS to BIM or scan to BIM and like the macro to BIM. But this is the whole other side of the coin of like BIM to CAM, to computer aided manufacturing, whereas that's always traditionally been a CAD to CAM, computer aided design. But we do need to be in a BIM world if we're actually going to coordinate it correctly. Yeah. And that is way easier said than done when you get in the nuts and bolts of the way Revit works and fractional differences with translations and how it how it complicates things, and things have to start moving back and forth, and knowing that those limitations probably aren't going to go away anytime soon. Like, how do you maybe change the process to better avoid those things from happening? I mean, I think that's kind of the next frontier of where we're at in this, is that there are just certain limitations in the realities of these different scopes of macro to micro in the digital world. And I mean, that's kind of my outsider's assessment as I've been learning more about, the whole kind of frame CAD supply chain and all these different players that are involved, and, trying to make sense of, when is the best time for engineering and BIM coordination and all that stuff. And, Chris, David, would love to, hear any of your thoughts, or, what you've found from 12 years ago till now, has maybe improved over that, or some of it maybe is still kind of, it's the same stuff, just, repeated and maybe, faster machines. How far have we come, Chris?
A good ways, right? I kept thinking about it as you're talking there. We are still in the same sort of design software space. Everybody is latched to Autodesk design tools, good and bad in many ways, right? I will say there's been a different take of coming here in dealing with the size of models has increased. The amount of faces that we're dealing with in that in sort of the Revit design space. Again, this cold form structure we're building right now. Each floor, which equates to walls and floors above, it's 15 to 18 gigs per floor. So now we've got this massive big data thing that the old partner in the room can't handle. So yes, now interoperability. Now we're talking about size and data and being able to slim that thing down, so that we can actually use the damn thing. Again, I don't know that I would have guessed this before I came here to BLUvera and became so close to this data. But it's a problem that has changed the way me and the coordination teams are working, because we don't have free, unfettered access to the data. Again, interesting and different than I would have thought, 6 months ago prior to being here.
I think on my side of the fence, just in terms of bringing what's designed in the virtual world into the physical world, anytime we have a quality issue within that interaction, it's where a human had to do something manually, right? So from my perspective, we need to find a way to integrate Revit with the manufacturing softwares that we use, right? Just to take the human error aspect out of it. That's our biggest pain point in that interaction right now, I would say.
So I'm interested. I want to go back to Chris. What you described is that we're going from the design, right? We're going from the model. We're going over, and we were leaving it there basically before. It was kind of orphaned into David's world, and getting to the manufacturing space. And um, Nathan, you used, I think, CAM, right? So it was kind of BIM to CAM, but never. So now, are you talking about this engineer is bringing it from CAM to BIM so we can, kind of BIM what we built? Is that where we're headed with it? Is that what what's the round trip for? Because I don't know. I want to know, I guess, because I
Yes,
was.
absolutely. So we want to give a real picture because we've created fab level information. We want to give a real picture back to our designers, our quality folks, our owner to maintain it. But could we give them a lesser sort of LOD type of model? Yes. But I think the again, what happens from once we sign off a model, if you will, and it goes to the FrameCAD proprietary software, and we're putting in dimples and text and other things that are machine coded things that aren't in any design model, and those are the things that get lost, coming in and out. So wouldn't we like every bit of those things to be back up in our sort of fab level record model or coordination model, depending on when that gets back to the team? I say yes, because it's been that. What's the mantra? Like, if it's not the model, you're going to get bit by it. Again, I just think it's a true record of that. And
yeah, I like that. I mean, putting the fidelity of what you're actually pushing through and building, the little things that you can't dimple and I don't want necessarily, the designer to really worry about that, right? Like, that's your process to worry about, but then not having that fidelity back into the model and in front of the folks coordinating and doing what they're doing. I could just see a mistake, right? You don't know what you don't know. So now you're saying we're gonna let you know what we know, and that's a unique proposition to again increase data and fidelity throughout the entire process, and that's what we're really looking to do, right? We do these circular motions with data and information and decisions that have driven those things and inform them as they go through, but we just drop them off in places.
Yeah, and to add to that, Jeff, it's interesting because you just hit on that. It's this quality process is really what we're talking about here. I've always said half of that is about the amount of eyeballs that we get on it, or softwares that check that. So if we leave a bit of it just down where a handful of highly specialized folks only see it, and not the PMs and soups and the owners back up at the design space, like it's you're just missing a whole section of the job that could have looked at it and could have checked it and could have responded to that. Again, it's democratizing everything in a full round trip, start to finish.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah. And David, that's got to be kind of, you're in a new journey, right? You're in a world now where, maybe before you knew a little bit about your products or where they went, but now, like, your products are buildings. So that has to be kind of interesting that all of a sudden now your information and process is being democratized back to someone to consume, and you're actually have visibility over it. So I'm just interested in, I don't know that you have much of a feeling on it, but other than an experience with it.
Yeah, I think, well, ignorance is bliss to some extent, right? I'm coming in from a completely different industry that's really well established. So, I think that the way I want things probably seems ridiculous to some in the construction industry, but I'm asking for things that we do in manufacturing that's standard, right? The level of drawings we use, the level of detail on a drawing, right? On the construction site, you're not going to have a bill of materials for an individual panel. That doesn't happen. it's difficult to get buy-in from everybody involved to bring things to that level. But that's how we're going to change the industry in terms of not just building I don't want to build a building like we do in the field in a factory. I want to manufacture a building. They're two different things. So the level of detail required is just much greater for true manufacturing.
Explain that nuance, because I think it's going to be lost on a few folks.
If you were to, in the field, you're going to go think about making a stud wall, right? You're going to have a pile of studs. You're just going to have everything there, and you're going to build as you go. You don't have detailed information on that. What we want to do is use specific information for each piece, and also we want to understand where it goes in the building. Repeat it if possible as well. So we're talking, in a perfect world, I'm going to use the same wall panel 100 times, right, on the building. That's the dream. We aren't there yet, but that's the goal. That's what we want to do. The same connection details on all of our projects. And this is where, to me, I want to start seeing, the architect side of things start to understand what we're trying to do and design buildings that allow us to reuse those features many times. Because right now that just doesn't really exist, at least in the realm that we're in.
No, you're absolutely right. It doesn't. That makes a ton of sense. I mean, that's the design for manufacturing and assembly, right?
Yes. That's where we get from into manufacturing, not construction. Construction's all custom stuff. You just do it because you do it. I don't want to do that. I want to repeat details again and again and again. That's where I can find productivity, repeatability, even safety in the shop, right? So like doing unpredictable new things is not great for safety because it's new. We want the team to do the same thing again and again because that's what they're familiar with.
Yeah.
And that keeps our team members' safety.
I say this all the time in construction. The first time you do anything is usually the worst time.
Yeah.
And so we do it the worst every time we do it.
Yes.
Because we do it the first time every time we do it.
Yep.
So now if I'm doing 100 walls and I'm doing 1,000 walls, and because you're reusing my parts and pieces, even though the colors and the feel, the experience of the outside of those walls can be all the flavors and things that you want. Right. We're just talking about the foundational structure that creates the fidelity in the structure itself. It can follow this course of repeatability and, for lack of a better term, Lego parts and pieces. But the experience can still be custom. That's design for manufacturing and assembly and construction. That's how we productize what we're doing and allow architects to consume that product in a way that still generates creativity and the feelings and the design intents that they have. But it provides a level of quality and repeatability that we just never had before. And that's why I love the conversation. I mean, that's why I love that you guys are pushing at that, because never once did I hear you say, well, I want your structure to be exactly this. You just said, no. You're going to have 1,000 walls. Can we make 900 of them with this product, please?
Yeah. Yes.
And oh, by the way, if I'm putting up 100 walls and I have time and I'm stick building, there's a million things that can go wrong while I'm building 100 walls. And 100 walls is how many trips to Home Depot to get the things I was missing. And Chris goes, damn, man, I've made that trip.
No,
unless there's a Starbucks on the way.
That's a black hole, man. You make it once, you make it 10 times, and that's your day.
And that's your Starbucks on the way, man. That's about the only thing that's useful out of this whole thing is Starbucks is actually making the money. But, this process will allow us to, and then know exactly the quality of each piece that went out and have it go through a set of standard quality assurance that we just don't have in the field.
Yeah.
Right. Half the time we're buttoned up before we're even looking at it.
Here's an interesting story about BLUvera. Again, I've been here for a much shorter time than David, just a handful of months. So this group is made up of roughly half construction professionals and half manufacturing professionals. When we have these sort of team meetings or continuous improvement meetings, the construction guys are like, yeah, kind of close. That's okay. And David and his team are like, no, it's right on. We're talking about 16ths and 32nds of an inch. We're like, nah, like we don't build that way. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. We're fine. We're good. We're good. I mean, they're hilarious conversations about where did you come from and what's normal to you. Which I think is a fantastic mix of who we are as an organization.
I want this clip. I don't think I've ever wanted a clip that doesn't have audio in it. I just want the clip of Chris saying that in David's face. Because you give away your entire card deck in that. He was like, man, it's close. And David's we don't do close, man.
It hurts. Yeah.
That hurts, man. We don't do close. You got out of your seat and moved around.
This is why I had to break the rules and bring two people on, because we needed one construction and one manufacturing. He had to see that.
It's the yin and yang.
That is funny, David. So now you get to react to Chris like, hey, we're pretty close. Pretty close is okay, right?
And to be honest, I think for me, I would love a little more tolerance, to allow less waste, all of the things, right? This is a good example of something we've been struggling with recently. And I won't bring up any names as far as what manufacturer this is, but we've been working with a supplier, and the supplier's spec says my gaps need to be a 16th inch or less. And this is a rectangular sheet we're talking about. Okay, so sheet to sheet, I can have a 16th inch. Their manufacturing tolerance for squareness is plus or minus 3 millimeters. So just adding that up, so worst case scenario, from sheet to sheet, I'll have a 1/4 inch gap, and that's their manufacturing tolerance for their sheet. How do I hit a 16th inch? These are the things we're faced with, just in terms of, I think what happens in the field stays in the field. We're trying to do things differently. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not gonna, and because again, ignorance is bliss, I have a rosy picture of what needs to happen because I'm in manufacturing. If the spec says 16th inch, I'm going to hit that, right? I'm not going to let it go. So that's where our quality, I think, will be better because we're so specific with how things need to be done. But what the challenge faced there is, how do I get suppliers to understand my point of view in terms of that? Because what likely is happening is others aren't asking the question why. Mm-hmm. Why can't I hit the spec? We're asking why, and it's difficult to ask that question because the answer isn't easy.
Well, and those are the questions worth asking, right? Anything worth doing is hard.
Yep.
That we got to go back to that. Like, if it was easy, we wouldn't have podcasts, we wouldn't have integrated construction delivery, and we wouldn't have positions like this if this stuff was easy. It would just be the way, and we'd just go do it. Yeah. Because we're changing a centuries-old process that, quite frankly, the one thing people fail to say is it's been successful, right? It hasn't been efficient. It hasn't been necessarily safe. It hasn't been as cost-effective as it could be. There's a number of things that it is not, but one of those is not successful. I mean, unless you start throwing in the financial terms and the legal terms and all that thing, and then you can have a whole nother conversation about, whether it was successful or not, but projects are up. Buildings are up. Yeah. Things aren't necessarily falling down on a regular basis. So this is a challenging new methodology, but I think we're at the perfect precipice for this to happen. Jeff, now is the time.
Yeah. Again, it's that brought up this recollection of mine. Again, I think we say, so I grew up in the concrete industry, and we'll say, I was going to make, 12, 15, 20% on a job, whatever. And if we, I'll say we made 10, we came in at 8, we feel good about ourselves and we call that a success, but we still left 2 on the table. So I think this is us as an industry. We're saying, we're making money, we're good, but it is so incredibly inefficient. And I think that's just, everybody's been sort of patting themselves on the back for this, but we're building and it's successful and there's a lot of jobs, but it's absolutely inefficient in many ways across the spectrum of getting those things done. And we leave a lot of things on the table.
You just hit 2 conversations I had recently. One, I was pitching an idea on some thoughts that I've got going in my own head, and my buddy just replied back like, "Sorry, man, but most people don't care." right? And we were specifically talking about concrete and that world. And it was like, look, it's 5 million went through and I billed 5.2. And so I made 2, and that was with payroll and everything. I don't care. I don't care where it went, how it went. I'm good. You know, I've got money in, money out. I'm not counting where that money goes or where it goes. Hey, as long as at the end of the year, the number in is above the number out, I'm good. And then the other one was, gosh, we are the worst bettors on the planet. If you think about the odds that we take on a regular, you would never walk up and see the NFL games of the week and be like, oh, those are the ones I got to put down $100,000 to make 10. I'm going to go for that one. Nobody makes that bet. But you know what we do in construction? We're like, oh, we're not gamblers. Yeah, right. We bet that every freaking time.
Yeah.
100%. And what you're saying is, no, folks, like, we can be the winner. And not only can our odds be great, like, the fix is in. We know.
Well, I think again, growing up in the tech space, in the VDC world, like I have this conversation with bosses about like, how do I want to hire more people, or I want to, or whatever resources I need. And they're like, well, you're not going to add to the bottom line. I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to save you millions of dollars. I was like, doesn't that count too? But we don't track averted cost at all or very well on any level. So
nope.
It's another version of, like, well, we're a little, we didn't pull in as much. We didn't have as much quality problems. So we're okay. We're okay with that, which I think is kind of crazy.
Yeah. You want to get walked out of a construction executive room when they say they want to double in size, and you go, okay, so how are we going to reduce the overhead and, do this in a scalable fashion? And they go, no, we're just going to double.
Yeah.
And you go, wait, so you're going to double the risk too, right? And then they're like, sir, there's the door. You can use it. Because our only measuring stick is our backlog and our revenue. And that's, so we're going to go from 250 to 500 million.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and double the risk. Great. And we wonder why the boardroom is gray. You guys are doing this to yourselves. So it's like, let's just leave it there. So where can people go learn a little bit more about BLUvera? Because we got to jump into some news, and I'm really interested to get both of your takes on what we're up to this week on news. Where can they go to learn a little bit more and learn about BLUvera?
Yeah, so www.BLUvera.com is the website.
BLU?
Some good. So spelling's a little different. So it's BLUvera.
VERA. And now, can anybody really work with you guys, or are you still a pretty integrated supply chain so far?
We are fully vertically integrated with our GC.
Okay.
So
this is for our owners out there.
Now.
Go take a look, and for our geeks, they're gonna come stalking y'all. So, and I heard beforehand, I'm not gonna out, but Chris may have talked to one of our favorite dorks recently. So, I think you'll find few more of them finding you guys at out there in the world.
Excellent.
Thanks, both of you, for joining us today. Don't worry, you're not going anywhere, but we got to get to the construction technology news of the week. All right, Nathan C. Wood, what do you got for me today, buddy?
Oh, man, thank you for sharing this one. It was perfect timing with the discussion we just had. So this one comes from Kevin Lawson, the case for less communication in building design, which I found a little shocking. But as I read through this more, I'll just get a clip here. Engineers spend too much time on tasks not related to design work for an automated design tool to increase productivity by 10x. If an engineer spends 25% of their time communicating and coordinating, the best we could hope to accomplish with an automated design tool is 4x productivity. So it kind of goes through the very detailed kind of math on the world of architects and engineers. Because again, we've been talking a lot about the role of GCs and fabricators and downstream panel folks. There's a whole ton of waste that occurs, and would love to hear, Chris and David, any of your insights. But I will see here that he does mention one response here is that a way to resolve the dependencies is through, again, communication and coordination, ironically. But because we've enjoyed this communication renaissance over the past 30 years, email, cell phones, electronic document transfer, cloud documents, we've actually never communicated more. And so, again, maybe finding that time to be more intentional and be more engaging with our communication is the way we do it. But I still, again, from my experience, don't think we've cracked the code here on that relationship between design and engineering before we even get into fabrication. I know, David and Chris, you both mentioned something about it. Any of your thoughts on it?
Yeah, funny that you say that. I kept thinking about generational differences too, in terms of like how we communicate. I still tell young engineers, they're like, "Did you communicate?" They're like, "Yeah, well, I sent text and emails and that kind of thing." I'm like, "Well, but did you actually speak to that human?" Again, it's another sort of I came up in that space where I had super tendency, like yelling it down my neck about, "Go talk to that guy. He's right there. Go speak to him." I don't know.
Dude, that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at it. Don't worry. The millennial over there just jumped out of his skin, like David did before when you say, we're close enough. And Nathan just jumped out of his skin. Wait, you want me to talk to a human? You want me to call them? What?
Yeah.
What? But this goes back to, I think the whole gist of the article, though, is that like we communicate and create waste constantly, right? Communication waste. And we've built that environment because we built a litigious world, right? We built an environment in which everything's about CYA and not about opportunity cost. And this is about stop blasting everybody with everything and start communicating. Start collaborating in a way that's streamlined, makes sense, meets them where they are, uses the right tool set to do it. To your point earlier, both of you, that it takes to get what BLUvera is doing, it takes shifting the risk from on-site and stick build to upfront and early decision-making. That comes with a certain focus. And we didn't talk about it for you guys, but like, this is how we're going to communicate. And there's such a criticality in the way we're going to communicate that we've got to be pointed, and we've got to take some time to set up the systems and set up the technology up front and agree upon it and then freaking use it, right? We must agree and then use. You can't have those folks that are going around the corner. And sometimes that's as simple, and I hate standard operating procedures. Anybody who knows me knows that just makes my skin crawl. But a standard operating procedure is like, hey, this is a design change that's in the model. Okay, if it's at this level, we need to communicate it. So yeah, that might mean, Nathan, get uncomfortable. Here's a phone call. Like, this is a phone call. This is a meeting. Hey, this is a simple change that just needs to be noted and make sure that it raises in an issue system or some sort. Like there's a need for this, but also, can we shut up sometimes and let people work? I do these flow workshops these days, and David, you'll probably, coming from the manufacturing world, understand flow and small batch and getting things through, and how the right thing at the right time, not overloading it, not underloading it. There is this perfect flow, that you hit flow state, and you can't hit flow state if somebody's saying, wait. That's no, by default, your flow is gone. So I think that's some of the stuff that to me is nuanced. But what I like about what he did in the article was Kevin gave a whole lot of numbers, and my engineer folks, they need numbers.
Yes.
So
Yep.
I'm interested in that thought, David.
Yes,
You're like, yes, thank you. Man, we got to, by the way, I just want, you guys have such a good podcast set up that I really want you guys to take that and go to where the construction teams and the manufacturing teams come together. I think you could create the world's first BLUvera reality. And you could sell it on like I'm a huge Gold Rush fan. Like, I got to meet some of those guys last year, and like I watch that show all the time. And if there was one on construction like that, I'd watch it every week. I'd be out. I'd
For
be
sure,
like,
that's not a bad idea. Yeah.
I love it.
The BLUvera reality. There you go. All right, Nathan, we can go down the road for a while. But what else you got for me?
I'll make my last one quick. This is a little bit of a shameless plug, but I think, Chris, you said the word of the year, interoperability, is something that I've been preaching within the industry for 6-7 years now. But this article here from Construction Pros is all about Trimble in 2023 and a big year for interoperability. So for those that are not familiar, Rivet and Tom Stem and team that built the Procore and Deforma RFI connector and a lot of these other interoperability tools was acquired by Trimble last year. And so it's been a huge year for them working on integrating tools internally as well as keeping those external tools maintained. So I think for those that may have known Trimble 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago as a truly hardware company, very closed in their data sharing and transparency, with all these software acquisitions, it's awesome to really see that they are now in this truly open space and really taking the lead as far as interoperability and understanding and trying to solve these challenges that we were clearly describing in much detail here. So it's pretty cool to see.
Perfect timing. And in fact, I believe it or not, I was at PT with my son and I ran into a friend of mine that runs a construction company. And that was the first thing out of her mouth was they went to Trimble Dimensions this year and they were super hot on this, what is now Rivet or what was formerly known as Rivet. I forget its new name. They gave it
Trimble Construction One.
Yeah. And it's really cool to see them leaning in and connecting a lot of their products together, especially because, there were users of their products that were like, we need these to talk to one another. So interoperability, I think, will be kind of a cornerstone because of exactly what Chris, you were hitting on before with, if we spend so much time in the digital world up front and designing in, whether it's BIM or even, CAD, and we go all the way out to construction. And if we're introducing manufacturing, techniques to this, where we're manufacturing even some of the product, and then we're handing over this new thing, like, I'm not a fan of the digital twin. Everybody knows that. I'm a data twin. I believe that it is the data that needs to be handed over correctly, because I want to know just as much about the model and the dimples and the other things that are done in it as I want to know about the systems and how they run. And, I want more and more of our buildings are electrified and IoT capable. I need to know about those things. So, and I need to know how to function with those things. And I need to know where my replacement parts are, right? Like whether I'm talking about lights, whether I'm talking about filters and whatnot. So these are the types of data that we just need for high fidelity buildings in the future. So I'm interested because you guys are obviously sitting down with the challenges right now with interoperability. And do you think we're getting better or getting worse?
Oh, I mean, better. Yeah. But there's so much washing over us in terms of startups and new tools and this and that. I mean, the pool is way bigger, so we're better, but the lake that we're sitting in is much more vast.
That's a good analogy, Chris.
Are you saying we have floaties on and
Man.
we used to be in a little pool in the backyard and now we're in a big lake and we're still using floaties?
Well, and even to the previous article, it's the setting up good processes or picking the right tools. But so BLUvera, we've got tools and you've got tools and whoever else has their tools. We all have these legacy things that we're all lock, stock, and barrel going to use, and it's our thing. And you got to use my thing. So again, and I appreciate, Nathan, I know you've picked up this mantle for years, but this idea of sort of common interoperability, like it's the only way forward. I mean, there is no one tool that's going to be good for all of us. And if those softwares don't, buy into that common language, then we're just continuing to silo each other and our data. Back to what you said, Jeff, it's really about siloing that data and again, there's just more of it. I don't know, man. I mean,
but even when you have that capability, we've still run into, David, everything you just brought up of all these little, tolerance issues and things. Like it's never going to go away, right? We'll just continue to get a little bit better at it and chunk our way at it.
Right.
Yep. Lean mentality. We got to take small steps. But we got to keep taking steps. If we don't take steps, if we don't at least have on floaty things, Chris and David will be drowning. So at least we're wearing our floaty things. Maybe we'll get up to a PFD, a personal flotation device at some point. And then maybe someday we'll actually, and I'll go to my gold rush. We'll figure out how to get a water pump and drain that sucker and drain that lake and put it into the right places, put it back into the environment where we can reuse it.
Yeah.
That would be fun. So, all right, I'm going to jump in. I have a quick one that this is going to come out. This episode's going to come out in early 2024. And everybody knows I'm going to be shining my shoes and getting my carry-on bag out and getting ready for 2024's top construction events. So thanks to our friends at Construction Dive and Matt Thibodeau for putting out a list there. Now, it appears that the list is in order of when they happen. So I'm going to hit a couple of my highlights. World of Concrete, which is just giant. And Chris, you're shaking your head. I'm sure you've been to that one before.
So good.
Awesome. New York Build. I was really, it's interesting. We're seeing New York Build and Chicago Build, and some of those come across. And I think they were a little underwhelming in the beginning, but I'm really been in the last year hearing good things. So I think that's one to keep an eye out. Advancing prefab, around the conversations we've been having, if there's one place you want to be and you're in fabrication, you got to go check out Advancing Prefab
in Denver.
Yeah.
In Denver this year. That's right. ABC's national convention, that World of Modulars one I didn't know about. So some really interesting ones. And I love that AWCI made it. Nathan, you and I have talked about this. This is the Association of Wall and Ceiling Industry, really seeing, those, framing and drywall contractors come and take their place. Some mass timber stuff that's going on. LCI's on the list. I love to see SMACNA. The only one that I didn't see that I want to give a little personal plug to is I hope to see y'all, because, me and this guy over there are going to be there. Is you better kick off your year with MEP Innovations, because that's where Nathan and I are going to be out there talking a lot about, what David and Chris have been talking about, just more for our mechanical, electrical, and plumbers and sheet metal folks out there, our tin knockers, about prefab and technology and some of these same challenges. So I just wanted to throw some highlights. Is there some in this panelized world that, maybe David, you go to, or Chris, that you're hot on?
No, not necessarily. I'm pretty new to the industry, and I joined in COVID times, so I just haven't had much of an opportunity.
Hey guys, we gotta get David out there.
We're
we gotta
change
baptize
that.
him.
Yeah.
Chris, we gotta baptize David out there.
Yeah.
And I heard you was on the road recently, Chris. So what are some of your highlights?
Funny, the advancing group, the Hanson Way group, they've been all over me about the advancing pre-construction. They are what's the good work? They've emailed me a bunch of times. There it is. Thank you. I couldn't get it out of my mouth.
Yeah, I did think about you. Them being in Denver, it'd be good timing to show some stuff off. But yeah,
for sure. I think that's one of the biggest ones.
And you got the usual Autodesk University. You got to be at Procore Groundbreak.
Yep.
I wear all colors, so I don't care. And I think there's a lot of those that are out there. Trimble Dimensions,
Future Tech.
Some of the great ones.
Yeah, Future Tech.
So, and just do me a favor, folks, get out there and go to some of them. So let's drag David to one this year, and we'll baptize him in the world of construction dorks and the ConTech crew style, and we'll have some fun.
Love it.
And this last one, I'm going to have a little bit of fun with, and I couldn't end my year before I go into hiding over the holidays, but this will be out in the new year. But I'm an NPR fan, so you guys have heard a little too much about NPR these days, but I caught this one. I thought I'd look it up. It's Artificial Intelligence Act. The Council and Parliament strike a deal on the first rules for AI in the world. So this is really about the EU and understanding these draft regulations. So I'll just read you this really quick. It's the draft it's called the Artificial Intelligence Act, and the draft regulation aims to ensure that AI systems placed on the European market and used in the EU are safe and respect fundamental rights and EU values. This landmark proposal also aims to stimulate investment and innovation on AI in Europe. And I think that, they're calling this a historical achievement. And I would have to agree with that, because this is one of the first legislations that's aimed at categorizing and creating boundaries, bumpers, so to speak, around how we classify current AI and AI that comes out, and then understanding how to regulate and look at it. And that's really important, because there are a lot of folks sitting on the sidelines, not betting in AI yet and not investing in AI in ways that are really going to make those incremental changes. We have a lot shooting at big, fundamental, disruptive type shifts. And I'll be honest, I don't know that this technology really has that at its core when you really start to crack it up and look at what it consists of and what it is. So classifying and regulating allows us to innovate inside of a space. You guys have all heard me use this analogy too many times, but what I take this to is what we've been in AI is we've been going bowling with my daughter and not putting the bumpers up. And all we're doing is rolling gutter balls, and dad's having a few too many drinks to get over it. And that's the only way we're going to have a good time. Right? As if maybe my daughter rolls my butt down the alley. But if we put the bumpers up, she can roll a bunch of balls, hit a few pins, get a few wins, and start to understand how this game works, so that eventually we can drop those bumpers and we can start rolling strikes. And to me, that's what this is. And I think the US can use this as an opportunity to look at it. Some of the things in it, transparency obligations, limited risks. They've defined the AI systems. They have, competencies in national security, military and defense, research and innovation, exceptions for law enforcement, but also understanding of social scoring and biometric categorization. That's the ability to use cameras and facial recognition and other tools to do things like social scoring, which is, what you might be up to based on where we've seen you. And, maybe we've seen you going in and out of a health store, so you get a higher score. Maybe we see you going in and out of a tobacco providing place or a bar, and you get a negative one. These are the type of things that AI is actually capable of doing, but it's not socially, and it's irresponsible. But on the flip side, how many of you now have gone through TSA faster because they've created the barriers where you now can hand them your deal? It looks at you, it takes a picture, it knows it's you, boom, you're through. I will tell you, DIA has gotten faster because of this.
Yeah.
Right. And I think far more accurate, probably. So I'm interested, Nathan, because regulation's not my favorite thing, but in this case, I think it's a landmark. And if you look at things like what was it, BIM mandate that they had in Europe ahead of us. So,
well, BIM mandate, or actually, I go to the Screen Actors Guild strike, and a lot of this, like what came out of the strike, was the fact that they didn't want AI and a lot of these kind of things taking their jobs. And I think a lot of what we're going to see in the next 3 to 5 years is designers, architects, engineers really having to protect their profession as they should. And I mean, we joke about we're all still making money as contractors and trades, but designers actually do struggle with making as much money as they need to. And we don't have nearly enough time to go into the reasons why that is, and we will. But AI, I think for our industry, is going to come after that stuff first, as far as the whole generative design, let us do it for you. And we really do need to worry, because if they're using the databases of projects that we've done today, we all know those Revit models are crap. So I wouldn't want AI design in my building, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm interested, David. You're leaning in. You got some thoughts on it?
Not necessarily. I think it's going to be interesting to see where AI can fill some voids for us and get rid of some work that we don't like to do as engineers. But there's a fine line there, right? Making a truck stacking is one, right? How do I get all these different shaped panels on a truck efficiently? The only way to do it is to just do it. We've tried a lot of different things, and a human brain's the only way to figure it out. Maybe AI can help us there, but and that's one that is really important for us to figure out, but is time consuming and distracts from, more important tasks. So I think there's some opportunities there, but in terms of having the bumpers up, you've got some really valid points there in terms of how do we make sure that it's not going to take over.
Yeah, I like your idea of the stacking. That is one of those things where you'll, I think, eventually be able to feed in the systems to an
Absolutely.
algorithm that
Yep.
will tell you, because it's not just doing forward math, it's doing reverse math, right? Because you've got to reverse it off the truck. So you want it on the truck in a way that you take, the one you need off first. You didn't accidentally bury the one you need at the
Yes.
far end of the truck, and now all of a sudden you got lay down, or as you deliver in chunks, that's what a computer is great at, that you and I can, dot the I or dot the T and cross the I and screw the whole thing up.
Yes.
But it also should not make a decision for you based on, how that environment might be used by an individual or even an engineer, right? I don't want the AI deciding, oh, no, we think statistically speaking from all of our data that's going to hold. Yeah, no, that's where I want an engineer to go. Yeah, I've done all the math and the calculate. Yeah, that'll hold, And Chris, you're shaking. You're into that.
I'm on Nathan's tip. I still think it's the creativity, the creative side of the thing. Again, whether it be from design or any kind of the plastic arts or whatever, like how do we show original works anymore? I think is this sort of thing that without having guardrails, it just busts right through that. And again, I do believe in the guardrails that may hone in on that. But my wife is a writer. I grew up in the architectural design space. I've done some industrial design. Again, even back to our position, putting together a good process or something on the more technical side, like the protection of intellectual property becomes kind of blown up, and that's what scared a bunch of people right out of the gates. And again, hats off to the EU for trying to wrangle this in a little bit on some level.
Yeah, that is some of the beauty of it, right? If we can create those walled gardens and know that our IP stays in house, then we can maybe more rapidly iterate on our own IP and improve our own IP. But we have to know, I said this from the beginning, and we saw it with a Samsung employee. They wanted a piece of code and they fed in, private IP into Chat GPT. And by the way, it says it there in the end user license agreement, but you just socialize this to everybody. So programmatically, we do need to do that so that large organizations can leverage it, because again, it's about automating tasks that we don't have enough humans in the process to really, really do. And we're always going to have that problem. I mean, I was reading an article on construction physics recently about, the Luddites and welding and the fear around welding and plumbing, and that it was going to put plumbers out of business. Well, what plumber that doesn't weld these days is like a lot of what they do. Like, It didn't kill the profession. It didn't end it all. Like the Industrial Revolution, each one hasn't ended anything. It's actually, it's exponentially expanding our economy and our capabilities at a shrinking capacity of people to work. So, I mean, we got to do more with less. And the only way we do that is with powerful automation, but again, guardrails. So I'm with you. Hats off to the EU for doing it. Maybe we can, it's an election year, so I have no hope that we do anything this year. So if you're in AI,
not on that level.
This is your year to go do whatever the heck it is you want, because the regs aren't coming until we get another administration, another show completely. But let's just be honest. I love a good election year, because, well, you never know what's going to happen. So tune back in 2024 and we'll hear everything from you. David, Chris, awesome to have you with us. Thank you so much for sitting down, taking the time and struggling through the news with my struggle bus buddy over here. Nathan Wood, thanks for being my, what is my last recording for the year. I am going to go dark from here on out and have a wonderfully quiet holiday on the mountain.
Enjoy the time off. I hope you get more snow.
Thank you, Jill.
I do too. Here's to that white gold coming from the sky, baby. Bring it on. And I will not see you on a slope near you, because if you can catch me, then you can ski with me. And we'll just leave it at that, right? No friends on a powder day is for real. That is how I live.
One and only.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in today to geek out for our interview with David Victor and Chris Boal. To read all our news stories, learn more about our guests, and to listen to this show, visit thecontechcrew.com. This is the ConTech Crew signing out. Until next time, enjoy the ride and geek out.